Hello. Today we are going to work through a comprehensive set of maths problems covering topics like ratios, graphs, sequences, transformations, statistics, probability, and geometry. Our learning objectives include simplifying and applying ratios, plotting coordinates and analyzing linear equations, solving nth-term sequence problems, performing and describing transformations, comparing datasets using frequency polygons, calculating probabilities with tree diagrams, and solving three-dimensional geometry problems involving volume and Pythagoras. Our goal is to build your examination confidence by showing full reasoning and step-by-step working for every question. Let's get started with our first topic, ratios. Let's start with question 1, which focuses on ratios. Sarah has some chocolates. 24 are white chocolate. 16 are milk chocolate. Part A asks us to write down the ratio of white chocolate to milk chocolate to dark chocolate in its simplest form. First, we write the numbers in the order requested. Notice that the question specifically asks for white to milk to dark. To simplify a ratio, we look for the highest common factor of all three numbers. The factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, 8. The factors of 16 are 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. And the factors of 24 are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 24. The highest number that goes into 24, 16, and 8 is 8. So, we divide each part of the ratio by 8. 24 divided by 8 is 3, 16 divided by 8 is 2, and 8 divided by 8 is 1. So, the simplest form of the ratio is 3 to 2 to 1. This means for every 3 white chocolates, there are 2 milk and 1 dark. Now for part B of the ratio question. Rachel has apples and bananas in the ratio of 2 to 3. We are told she has 14 apples. We need to work out how many bananas she has. Think of the ratio as parts. Apples are 2 parts, and bananas are 3 parts. We know that 2 parts of apples are equal to 14 actual apples. To find the value of 1 part, we divide 14 by 2. Since each part represents 7 pieces of fruit, and bananas consist of 3 parts, we multiply 3 by 7. Rachel has 21 bananas. We can double-check this. 14 to 21 simplifies to 2 to 3 if we divide both by 7. Excellent. Moving on to question 2, which covers coordinate geometry and linear graphs. In part A, we need to plot the point P with coordinates 3, 5. Remember, coordinates are always written as x, y. We start at the origin, move 3 units to the right along the horizontal x-axis, and then move 5 units up the vertical y-axis. We mark this spot with a cross and label it P. Now, for part B, we need to determine if this point P lies on the line defined by the equation y equals 2x minus 1. To do this, we substitute our x-coordinate into the equation to see if it produces the correct y-coordinate. Let's calculate 2 times x minus 1 using our x value of 3. 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 minus 1 is 5. Since our calculation gives us 5, which matches the y-coordinate of point P, the answer is yes. Point P does lie on the line. Finally, part C asks us to draw the line with the equation y equals -4. A y equals equation represents a horizontal line where every single point has a y-coordinate of -4. We find -4 on the vertical y-axis and draw a straight horizontal line passing through it across the entire grid. Question 3 is all about sequences. We are given the rule for the nth term, which is 3n minus 2. In part A, we need to find the first 2 terms. The letter n represents the position of the number in the sequence. To find the first term, we substitute n equals 1. The first term, where n equals 1, is 3 times 1 minus 2, which equals 3 minus 2, giving us 1. To find the second term, we substitute n equals 2, that is 3 times 2, which is 6 minus 2, or 4. So, the first 2 terms are 1 and 4. For part B, we are told a term in the sequence is 70, and we need to find its position, n. We set up an equation, 3n minus 2 equals 70. We add 2 to both sides to get 3n equals 72. Then, divide by 3 to find n. 72 divided by 3 is 24. The 24th term of the sequence is 70. In part C, we must explain why 101 is not in this sequence. Let's try to solve it like we did in part B. Add 2 to both sides, which gives 3n equals 103. Divide by 3, and we get n equals 34.333 recurring. Because n is not a whole number, 101 cannot be a term. In any sequence, the position n must be a positive integer. If we can't find a whole number for n, the value isn't in the sequence. Now let's look at question 4, which involves transformations. This is a multi-step problem that requires precision. We are told trapezium A is reflected in the line x equals 1, and then that image is reflected in the x-axis. Let's do this step by step. First, we reflect A across the vertical line x equals 1. To do this, we measure the horizontal distance of each vertex from the line x equals 1 and place the new points the same distance on the other side. This is our intermediate image. Now, we take this new shape and reflect it in the x-axis, which is the horizontal line where y equals 0. By reflecting across the horizontal axis, point 7, negative 3 moves to 7, 3, and so on for the other vertices. Part B asks for the single transformation that maps A onto B. Notice that the shape has been flipped twice and rotated. If we look closely, the orientation and position suggest a rotation. Specifically, if we rotate shape A 180 degrees about the point where our two lines of reflection met, we get shape B. To get full marks, we must state three things: the type of transformation, which is rotation, the angle, 180 degrees, and the center of rotation, which is the coordinate 1, 0. Question 5 brings us to statistics. We are comparing the times taken by boys and girls to solve a maths question using frequency polygons. A frequency polygon is a graph where we plot the frequency against the midpoint of each class interval. For the girls, we have a table of data. Let's find the midpoints for the girls' data first. For the interval 0 to 10, the midpoint is 5. For 10 to 20, it is 15. Then 25, 35, and finally 45 for the last interval. Now, we plot these midpoints against the frequency provided in the table: 2, 33, 42, 14, and 9. We connect these points with straight lines. It is helpful to label this line girls, so we don't get confused. In Part B, we need to compare the two datasets. When comparing frequency polygons, we look at the peak and the overall spread. Notice that the boys' polygon is shifted slightly to the left compared to the girls' polygon at the higher end. More girls took longer than 40 seconds, whereas no boys did. On average, the girls took longer than the boys to solve the question. We can see this because the girls' data includes the 40 to 50 second interval, while the boys' data stops at 40. A good comparison usually mentions that the modal or most common group is the same for both, but the girls have a wider spread of times. Question 6 involves probability and tree diagrams. James is playing two games, the teddy grabber and the penny drop. The probability that he wins on the teddy grabber is 0.2, and the probability he wins on the penny drop is 0.3. In Part A, we need to complete the tree diagram. For each branch, the probabilities of all possible outcomes must add up to 1. For the teddy grabber, the probability of winning is 0.2. Since the total must be 1, the probability of losing is 1 minus 0.2, which is 0.8. Now for the penny drop. If he won the first game, the probability of winning the second is 0.3, and losing is 0.7. If he lost the first game, the probabilities for the penny drop are exactly the same, 0.3 to win and 0.7 to lose. Notice that the probability of winning the penny drop stays 0.3 regardless of what happened at the teddy grabber. These are independent events. For Part B, we want the probability that he wins on the teddy grabber and wins on the penny drop. In probability, and usually means we multiply the probabilities along the specific branches. We follow the path for win, then win. That is 0.2 times 0.3. The result is 0.06. The probability that James wins both games is 0.06. You can think of this as a 6% chance. If you're unsure about the decimal, remember that 2 times 3 is 6, and we have 2 decimal places in total, so 0.06 is correct. Our final challenge is question 7, which explores volume and three-dimensional geometry. We have a cylinder with a height of 10 centimeters and a radius of 4 centimeters. In Part A, we need to calculate the volume. The formula for the volume of a cylinder is the area of the circular base multiplied by the height. Let's substitute our values. Using a calculator, 160 times pi is approximately 502.6548. The question asks for the answer correct to 3 significant figures. Significant figures: 5, 0, 2. The next digit is 6, so we round up. The volume is 503 cubic centimeters. Now for Part B. We have a pencil that is 13 centimeters long and cannot be broken. To see if it fits, we need to find the longest possible distance inside the cylinder. This would be the diagonal from the bottom edge to the opposite top edge. The horizontal distance across the base is the diameter, which is 8 centimeters. We can use Pythagoras' theorem to find the diagonal length, d. 10 squared plus 8 squared equals d squared. 100 plus 64 equals d squared. 164 equals d squared. To find d, we take the square root of 164. Since the maximum internal diagonal length is only 12.8 centimeters, a 13 centimeter pencil is too long to fit. We have shown that 13 is greater than the square root of 164. Great job! We have worked through a variety of exam-style questions today.